On the count of 3, cast your charms to disarm your opponent. Only to disarm. We don't want any accidents here. 1, 2.
Invertate status!
Hi, I'm Reba Hervis, Artistic Director at Overshadowed Theatrical Productions. Welcome to this week's episode, From the Wings. We have a very special guest star with us today. I've started saying guest star, right?
Okay.
So, Karen, introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you so that they'll know.
Okay. My name is Karen. I am one of the Overshadowed community members. I have been here for, 7, 8 years. I serve on the board, and I've been in several shows, which have been amazing.
And it's been amazing to have you. Your first one was I'll Be Seeing You the first, or was there something before that?
My first one was Horizons of Gold.
Horizons of Gold, that's right.
My very first one. And it was my first show in, I think at that point it was like 40 years. I hadn't done anything since high school. So it was extremely exciting for me. I learned about Overshadowed through my son, Peter Kenneth, who is very involved here and is currently preparing to play the role of Joseph, opening Friday.
Yes.
This Friday,
Yep.
the 17th of January.
So
that's who I am.
Yeah, so this is a family with pedigree.
Okay. Okay.
My favorite Karen moment is we got to share the stage when we did the Diary of Anne Frank.
Yeah.
And that was just so, we had like little moments where, because we were supposed to not necessarily like each other that much. And
Right.
so we would have moments back behind the action that was taking place in front of us of different things with the dishes and things we were doing. And
Just
I
little connections.
loved every moment
It was
of it.
really
Yeah,
nice.
we need to do something on stage together again. It would be so much
that
fun.
was our only time on
I
stage
think so,
together.
yeah.
And that was fun for me because that was a reprisal of my first role in high school.
Oh, really?
I played the part of Edith Frank.
Oh.
Yeah, so that was really special.
A lot different coming at it the second time when you're actually
Very
old enough to
different.
understand it, right?
Very different. Yeah.
Well, I asked Karen a few months ago. As you guys know, I read books, and one of the things that we talk about from time to time are books that we feel like you should read or that might interest you in some way. And on my reading list, I read the book Beyond the Wand, which is a semi-autobiographical, right? I don't think it tells about his whole life.
No, not his whole life, but a good portion.
Of it.
Maybe kind of his whole life.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is his whole life, actually.
by Tom Felton, who you may know, he plays Draco Malfoy in the Harry Potter series. And so as I was reading that, I don't think I was all the way done with it. And I called you and I said, okay, this is something that you have to read. And then when you get done reading it, I want you to come on the show and let's talk about it a little bit. Now, I listened to it. What did you do? Did you listen or read it?
Yep.
I feel like if you are going to pick up this book, you need to listen to it because I think...
Oh, yeah, I agree.
I think it's so interesting to hear it is narrated by Tom himself.
Right.
And just to hear his voice and to hear the emotion that he puts into it sometimes I just think that's the only way to read it.
Right.
It was just so interesting that way.
He's telling his own story in his own voice, which makes the whole thing more compelling. It's just so honest and genuine and vulnerable. And it was easy to listen to.
I
You
agree.
feel like you're sitting across from the table from him and he's just telling you his stories and his experiences. It was really good.
There are a couple of trigger warnings. He does have a life that is, I guess we call it alcoholism. Do we think?
Yeah, it was alcoholism.
Definitely full-fledged. That really played a lot of a dangerous role in his life and had him make several bad decisions. So if that's something that's a trigger warning for you, that's definitely there. And he's very free with his language. And so there's also some language issues in it as you're listening
It's
to
not
it. So
awful.
it's not terrible.
It's not too frequent.
Yeah.
But it's there.
It's there.
It's there.
Yep.
Yep.
So is there anything about, so the book talks about his life, how he stumbled really into the role of being in that elite club of the children of the Harry Potter world. But he was actually famous kind of before he fell into that life. Or he would have been if you'd have kept track of.
He had some big roles.
Yes.
I don't know if he was famous,
Right.
but he had some big roles. He played the son in Anna and the King.
That's the
Anna's
one that I
son,
think is the biggest.
And he was
yes.
in The Borrowers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which are two movies I saw so long ago.
Yep.
I don't really remember.
I
but, yeah.
was shocked when he said he played Jodie Foster's son in that, because I love The King and I, first of all. Love Jodie Foster. Don't really remember her son in it at all, but I'm sure I saw it and I loved it. So the fact that he started at such an early age, but really it was Harry Potter who made him who really gave him the success that he has. I thought it was a really fascinating story. I also think it was really fascinating to think that he was in the running for the part of Harry for as long as he was, because now that you know him, I just can't even imagine
No.
it the other way, you know?
Yeah, it turned out he had the perfect personality to be chosen for the role that he played. And so obviously they made an excellent choice.
100%.
Yeah.
If you are a fan of the Harry Potter series, you will love listening to this book because he tells a lot about the friendships that he had and even the mentorship of the older actors and actresses and the wisdom that he got that sometimes he didn't accept right away, but in later life, looking back and the mentorship that he got from there, I think you'll find it really interesting to see that. It's also interesting to hear about his relationship with Emma Watson and just think about that. And really also the fact that the kids didn't always see each other.
Look who's here.
Ah, come to see the show.
You foul, loathsome, evil little cockroach!
Hermione, no! He's not worth it.
So because he wasn't part of the trio, then sometimes he didn't even see him. And in fact, I think he says the final day of shooting, he kind of said goodbye by himself.
He didn't see everybody. And
Yeah.
it was a very sad day, which we can understand in a small way, because when you're anyone that has done a show, a stage show, or you spend weeks or months with a group of people and you're creating together and you're doing life together and you're supporting and encouraging and challenging one another and you become very close. So I know that when a show ends, when it's over here, everyone's very sad on the last day. Like, we're kind of relieved because we're exhausted.
Life goes on, you're ready to move on to something else.
It takes a little while. It's tough. So a larger scale for him. They were very close. Like you said, the mentorships. There were some wonderful stories.
They grew up together, these kids. Now, he was a little older, right? Doesn't he say that that Emma was maybe only 8 or 9 when she started, and he was like 11 or 12?
Yeah, he was a fair amount older. So they connected in a very just kind of pure way. There was a lovely story about the two of them together, and I think they were hiking somewhere, and she said something to the effect of how she always feels different, but with him, she doesn't.
Yeah.
You know, like they were
So
each other's.
lovely,
they were each
right?
other's person.
Yes, I love that
in
so much.
Just a really lovely way. Yeah, so
It's
that
such
was really special.
an innocent time for them at a time where they could have fallen into other things that were not so innocent, right? Because the world could definitely take advantage of you. And I think that that's what happens to him later on in his life.
Right.
And I think that because of the way success had been thrown upon him, that then he kind of expected it to go on.
And I'm Malfoy. Draco Malfoy. Think my name was funny, do you? No need to ask you yours. red hair, and a hand-me-down robe, you must be a Weasley. You'll soon find out that some wizarding families are better than others, Potter. You don't want to go making friends with the wrong sort. I can help you there.
I think I can tell the wrong sort for myself, thanks.
Well, I thought what was interesting was that when he was in England, he was not like this huge star
True.
that everyone sought after him, that everyone was excited to see him. In a lot of ways, he was almost, he was not disliked, but they were kind of like, oh, there's the big star, you know?
Right, right.
It wasn't the same.
It kept him humble.
It kept him humble, and when he came to the United States, to Hollywood, it was a role, I don't remember what it was, there was some role he was offered, and then he ended up staying in Los Angeles. It was there that everyone started treating him like a star. And suddenly he became the person that
Right.
everyone wanted to be around. And he did become entitled, but he
Yeah.
also became disillusioned.
Right, right.
And that's when the,
and that's when
the
that,
alcohol
that started.
began.
And because of that, he proceeded to make a lot of decisions that personally were very disastrous for him. It messed up his family life, his love life, and really ultimately his career, because he lost several jobs because he wasn't able to do the work respectfully.
Yes, you're not dangerous at all, are you? You great ugly brute.
And the thing that I think my takeaway from all of that is the very warning that I give you guys all the time. Stardom is hard. You have to have your feet on the ground, because your world and your life and your choices that you're making day by day are really in the hands of other people. And I don't ever want you guys to come to a place in your life that you take the convictions that you had and shove them aside and move on because you want the job and you want the fame or you want the gig, whatever it is. And I think that sometimes it becomes so important to us to be loved by other people or to get the job or whatever it is that then we sacrifice, and then we're in search of happiness all the time. We just can't catch up with it. And I think that that was for him what it was. And so the thing that I think is so hopeful and so beautiful, I love the story that he tells. I don't know if you remember it, but he really kind of talks about being visited by 3 angels. I think he calls it, or 3 kings.
Yes.
Does it call it kings?
Good question.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly whether he calls them angels or kings, but it's very significant.
It was a very pivotal night
Yes.
where he was in rehab and he rejected rehab, and pivotal things occurred.
And so he's meeting these people who made a significant difference. Like, I think he went to one of them I know was like an Uber driver, and he didn't have the money to get where he needed to go. And the Uber driver was like, it's okay, I'm going to take you, and you need to get back to where you are. The other one, I think, was he went into some kind of convenience store and
Pulled out money.
And yes, yeah, go ahead.
He gave him money. He
yes.
just handed him whatever he
Yeah,
had.
the owner of the store or the person who was working there gave him what he needed. And I just think that for me, obviously, as a Christian, I'm listening to that and I'm like, okay, God is sending these rocks in your life to point you to where you need to go, to make sure you're safe and you get back to where you need to go.
Point of his entire life. And there were these angels or kings who, through their kindness and selflessness, made a huge difference in terms of the trajectory of his life.
And that's what changed his life. And so he realized that he needed to get done with this alcoholism, have a family. He moved back to England, which I think was a really good decision for him. So now when you listen to him at the end of the book, he's so humble and he's so thankful for the people who gave him opportunity along the way or loved on him along the way. And hindsight can look back And it's just so beautiful. I think that's the reason it meant so much to me, because it doesn't always end up that way. Sometimes the people who get entitled and move their life along never really realize, and they're always in search for something. But he, thankfully for himself, was able to find a place to ground himself and to realize, that the world is not what it seems, but the world can be very generous in giving back to you if you look at it the right way. That was the thing. That was the reason I think I wanted you to read it, because I think sometimes we think of these people who played these famous roles, which he talks about all of them. If you were a fan, you were going to love all the little tidbits that he tells you all the way through.
Fun
A whole bunch of things.
Some good laughs.
Yeah.
Just a lot of background information that was fun.
I think that for me as a director, I don't always direct with children well, because I've always, my life have been like junior high and up. And so I think the kids will probably even tell you and Joseph now that maybe I don't give them as much attention because I treat people like they're adults. That's my thing. And so it was really interesting to hear his notes about how they treated him on set. Like, for instance, the giggle jar. So sometimes the kids would just get the giggles, and they would look at a trick or a magic thing that they were doing, and the kids just would think it would be so funny, and they're like, no, we have to film this, but the kids are just dying of laughter. And so they made the kids put money in the giggle jar every time they would laugh like that. And I just think that even some of those stories are just so great to hear how directors handled things that we don't think about, because of course we think if you're making a big movie like that, obviously you're behaving and you're doing all the things that you're supposed to do, right?
Right.
So anyway,
a lot went on. A lot went on behind the scenes during the filming. So yeah, if you are a fan of specifically the films, you'll love that part of the book.
Yeah.
And if you're somebody that loves a biography and loves to kind of see that arc of growth, that it gives you that as well. So just seeing his growth from he did have a humble life. He did. He came from a humble family, and he wasn't treated like a big deal while he was making these films. And it wasn't until his brothers
especially
his
kept
brothers.
him. Yeah, they kept him
brothers. I think there
real.
was 3 brothers.
Yes,
they kept it real for sure. And all influenced him in great ways. And then it was coming to Hollywood, coming to the U.S. and that whole celebrity culture that really started his trouble. But again, just seeing that going from here and there and almost full circle to just who he really is deep down. Yeah, he's a really cool guy.
I think that that's something that we need to think about, the fact that what is it that we do to people by the pressure that we put on them to expect them to be something that we either see on screen or something that we expect because you're famous, you need to live this way or need to do this thing. Yeah. Because obviously that's different than the way he was treated at home in England, right? So maybe we need to dial it back a little bit on what we think of these stars. Yes, they're stars, but
they're human beings.
They're humans. Let's treat them like people. And it's great to get their picture or to meet them outside the stage door, Sutton Foster, or not. But
they're no different.
They're no different than anybody else. They're just. And I bet you know people equally as talented as some of these famous people. They just haven't chosen that path for their life. Yeah. And yet we treat them like they're gods. Yeah. Yeah. And they're not. They're just people. So maybe we need to have a reality.
I don't even know that he chose this. You
know? Right.
It just kind of was the way his life just happened to turn out.
Yep. In fact, I think, didn't they do it to kind of keep him out of trouble? Because wasn't he like not so always great in school? And so it's like, hey, let's give you something to do.
It was super casual too. Yeah. Like his mom was like, okay, we'll go today or we won't go today. We'll go to an audition. But it was never a big deal. She was never a stage mom. Yeah, right. It was just something he enjoyed doing. Yeah. Hey, this will be fun.
And he was good at it.
Yeah. Yeah, and speaking of people, going back to what you were saying earlier about the people that helped him along the way, that was a big part of it. That was just a really wonderful thing for me, was not the people around him that knew him, the people that were closest to him, the ones that really loved him. That's what really matters. It's the people that are closest to you, the people that know you, the people that are your family and closest friends.
I love that.
Those are the people that are important in your life. And seeing the kindness and the love that they had for him was just really sweet.
I know. I love that so much. Don't ever
Yeah.
forget that, people. In our search for having our dreams come true or wanting all the applause or whatever, there's a lot of pain that comes with it sometimes. And sometimes we have just as much love around us if we'll only take it and value it for what
True
it really
love,
is.
real love.
Right,
Yeah.
100%. So what did you give it, a like must read for people? Did you give it a 5 stars? What'd you give it?
Oh, you're going to ask me first?
I am.
You make me go.
I am definitely 100%, yes.
All right. I would say I loved it. I enjoyed it. I would give it a 4 out of a 5.
I'm pretty sure that's what I gave it to.
Really?
Yeah. I don't think that it was, he's not a writer. That's not what he is.
Yes.
And so he just talks, and there was a lot of stuff that he did that was very repetitive with his phrases.
Yes.
And like, I felt like sometimes when he'd start a new chapter, I'm like, well, you already talked about that before.
Yeah.
And it always kind of came around.
Yeah.
And I think the stories and the message of it were so great that I'd give it a 4. But if you're looking for solid literary achievements, this is
There you
not
go.
the book.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That's the way I
It
feel.
was a very easy listen.
Yeah.
Because we both listened.
Yeah.
It was
Enjoyable.
I sped it up.
Yeah. Ooh.
Because, there were times where I was like, I don't want to hear about school. And
Right.
you know,
100%.
There
Yeah.
are some things, and for him, not to put that down, these were his stories and things that were important to him, but there were some parts I was like, okay, that's not as interesting to me. I think the most interesting things were the behind the scenes, the relationships he had that he developed, and even the bond that they still hold, these people who created these films, and the growth in his life. Those were the 2 things that I thought were really, really good. And I do enjoy biographies, and I'm always looking for a lesson or something I can grab a hold of. And it does have those things, but if you're looking for something incredibly deep, like Paradigm Shift,
There's not that.
it's not that, but
Yeah.
it's a lovely story. He's a lovely person, and it was good. I recommend it.
Okay, yay. I'm glad I didn't recommend the wrong book for you. Thank you so much for being here and being
Thank
on
you.
this side of the camera.
Yeah.
This time Rebecca is on the back side of the camera, so you guys don't get to see her lovely face, but she'll be back with us next time. So until next time, this is just me
And me.
talking to you
From the wings.